Well. How you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mr. Riley Comstock?
I'm pretty good today.
Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, to what is the inaugural episode of the Watershed Education Network Podcast. Do we have a title for this thing yet, Riley?
I don't know. I think maybe we should call it Water with WEN, but
Water with WEN?
we're taking name suggestions.
So if you have an idea for the name of what this podcast should be, do let me know. Other than that, yeah, we're starting a podcast. Riley, why are we starting a podcast?
Podcasts are a great form of media these days. People love to listen to just people talk. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool ideas. You feel like you're involved in a conversation. Personally, I don't listen to any podcast, which Kyle routinely tells me is a terrible way to live my life.
I have so many podcasts that you could be learning so much from,
I-
and yet you drive so far so often and still don't listen to them.
I'm a big music guy, but I'm gonna work on it. Maybe starting a podcast will help me fix that. So,
I mean, honestly, at this point, it's professional development to be listening to podcasts.
yeah, that's a good point. I'll start listening to Tooth and Claw for you. My
There you
mom
go.
loves My Favorite Murder.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so
Uh,
we wanted to give all of our fans out in Missoula and the greater Western Montana area a new way to stay involved with WEN, especially during these winter months where we don't have as much stuff happening outside.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I want to take a second to clarify that this does not mean that we are throwing away the newsletter or throwing away social media. We're still going to be doing those too. And this is just another form on top of that where you get to hear a little bit about what's going on in the WEN world, maybe have some interviews, some storytelling, that sort of thing.
Definitely. So, Kyle, little fun moment here. What is your favorite water moment over the past year?
Favorite water moment over the past year?
Yeah, do a little throwback.
Gosh. You hit me with it without really preloading me at all. You wanna go first, and while I think about it, while you answer.
Yeah, I think I can do that. So I think my favorite water moment would have to be this last fall. Me and Kyle actually did this program called Wilderness and Civilization at the university together. And we went on a 3-day canoe float trip of the lower Flathead River, which was honestly pretty transformative for me. I realized how much I loved canoeing, and I've been surfing Facebook Marketplace weekly for a canoe ever since.
I know a guy who might be selling one.
Okay, well, give me his number. And if you have a canoe for sale, let me know. We camped 2 nights on the Flathead, and it was
If
pretty.
you're gonna tell this story, I think you really need to tell the true Sufferfest.
Well,
that this
okay.
event
So
was.
first day, great, good time. Nothing bad happened.
Some
second
silly
day-
moments were had.
Yeah. Second day, we do some lectures in the morning. Make food, break camp, get in the water about noon. As soon as we push off the beach, just starts dumping water, and it dumped water.
As to say, raining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the sky was crying that we were there. And it dumped water all the way till about 3 a.m. the next morning. And so we did about 10 miles of floating, and pitched our camp, and then proceeded to hang out outside of our tents for 7-8 hours that night.
Yep.
Built a pretty complex tent structure out of some tarps and logs and a lot of rope. That was very precarious, but
Personally,
nevertheless,
probably my favorite feat of engineering that I've ever been involved
yeah,
with.
it was pretty impressive. So, but nevertheless, we all 24 people in our cohort kept impeccable spirits throughout the entire thing. Just getting to spend all that time on the Flathead was and just live in it was a pretty important experience for me. And so
It's a pretty cool place. It was unexpectedly beautiful, given how close to Missoula, how close to people and all that sorts of stuff. We put in right below the SKT dam right at the base of Flathead Lake, and really I didn't expect that chunk of river to be so awesome.
Yeah, and it felt way more isolated than you
Yeah,
would have expected. So,
definitely.
okay, well,
It also deserves to be said that it was like 43 degrees.
yeah, and
Like the rain was pretty problematic given the temperature, but it was awesome nonetheless.
yeah. Okay,
Um,
Kyle, favorite
yeah.
water moment.
So my favorite water moment, I'm between two, so I'm gonna share both of them. One of them is
Delightful.
pretty quick.
Okay.
So last April, both me and the stream team coordinator here at WEN, Steffi, got our Swiftwater Rescue certification. And if you know anything about water in April, it's that it's usually going pretty fast and it's usually pretty cold. And both of those things were very true in the week I was getting my Swiftwater certification. And we got out there and went through a whole bunch. But the moment in particular that I like stands out to me still is we got on to they wanted to give us some like experiential learning. And so we got onto whitewater rafts and started floating down the clear water. And little did I know that they had sent a couple of the instructors down the river earlier in the day, and they had pinned themselves on streamers in flow, and we had to
No.
actually go rescue them. And so we're coming down the river, like, why are we whitewater rafting right now? This is odd. Like, okay, sure. And then we come up on our instructor screaming, "Help me, help me!" You know, going underwater and stuff.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, no, and so a whole bunch of, there was probably 8 of us who were in Swiftwater training, not Swiftwater trained yet. You know, we knew essentially what to do, but we had no coordination of it. And so all 8 of us jumped into the water and started doing things to try to rescue him. And at the end, he's like, "Yeah, I died because all of you didn't coordinate at all." But then the rest of that day, we kept floating down the clear water, and they kept going ahead and setting themselves up in precarious situations, and we had to problem solve. Like, how would we rescue them? How would we do it safely? How do we work as a team? And after that, we only lost one more victim. So
You know what? That's a success.
well, that's fake victims, I should say. That was pretty fun. But then the other one that stands out is Backcountry Stream Corps last year. We were working up Grant Creek, which, Riley, do you know where Grant Creek is?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Do you think everyone listening knows where Grant
Probably
Creek is?
not. It's
All
not
right.
not as well known.
So Grant Creek is a parallel watershed, a parallel creek to Rattlesnake Creek, just down by Reserve Street. We were up there, in the creek, next to some property owned by Dennis Washington as a ranch. And I remember it was kind of late in the day. It was pretty hot that day, like one of the hottest days of the summer last year. So being in the creek felt super good, and we were working up with our group of Backcountry Stream Corps folks. And I specifically remember we came around this bend in the creek, and it opened up into this giant pool, like a deep lateral scour pool. And
Ooh, some technical terms, Kyle.
oh yeah, so that means the water was going faster on one side than the other side, and it eroded out sediment and dug a big hole. But it was big hole, and I don't know, maybe 12 feet across by like 20 feet wide. And we were curious how deep it was. And the crew was all like, "You should find out how deep it is." So I started sticking my Stadia rod out there, and it was, I couldn't get to the middle. And so I started precariously wading into this hole to see, like, am I going to top my waders? I don't know. And so I got to a point where I was getting close to my belly button deep, and it was pretty still water, so I wasn't really in any danger here. But I also didn't want to top my waders, so I ended up backtracking out of it, and then we found a big stick and were able to measure the depth of that stick. It was over 6 feet deep.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, Kyle, can we talk about our last speaker series that
Ooh.
we had about 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, let's
Okay.
talk about that.
Okay. So if you didn't know, on January 29th, we had the always wonderful Morgan Valiant, who's the Associate Director of Ecosystem Services with the City of Missoula. We had him in for a speaker series to talk about the McKinley Lake dam removal in the Rattlesnake Wilderness that is slated to take place this August and has at this point received both Forest Service and city approval. And he came in and talked about the history of it and what the need for it was, and going forward with removing or reclaiming some of the other dams in the Rattlesnake. So, Kyle, what was your big takeaway from this speech?
Yeah. I mean, I think the project in itself is super interesting, and pretty clearly there's going to be a lot of opinions with doing wilderness dam management. What stood out to me most was the intentionality the city had when they were going through their process of getting approval and hearing all of the voices with them. I think they did a above and beyond job of going through this process so slowly, and so every step was measured and carefully considered to make sure that there was public opinion, there was alternate opinions being voiced, to make sure that this project really had all of the considerations it needed. That to me stood out just so much. Even going as far as, like, he mentioned they had meetings with, have like kind of vocally oppose this project, but to have those one-on-one meetings, I think shows us like this awesome intentionality on the part of the city, that really stood out to me.
Yeah,
But
I'd like to riff on that too. One of the interesting things I learned about this project is that the city actually has, well, the wilderness legislation that specifically enacted the Rattlesnake Wilderness has an exemption for these dams for motorized use, and so theoretically, the city could just go in however they want. They would just have to get the funding and do these projects. But they took the time to, like Kyle said, consult all these people and do it in a way that Morgan really stressed that they were trying to preserve the wilderness character while also doing this dam removal. And I thought that was really, really respectable on their part.
Yeah.
So
I agree. It was a cool talk. If you weren't there, it'll be published onto our YouTube quite shortly, if it's not already up by the time this podcast airs. And you can watch it there. But you can also come and check out our second speaker series of the year.
Carver Butterfield, who is a master's student at the University of Montana in the geography department, is giving a talk on Paddy Creek and his research on it. Carver did 3 years, I want to say, with the city of Missoula. Started out
with
as
the stormwater utility.
The stormwater utility in the city of Missoula, and got really interested with some of the local water resources that we have, and is doing this research. And funny enough, he's actually the TA for a lab I have, and so I go and I'm like, hey Carver, and he's like, hey. So I'm excited to hear his research, and that's on February 27th, 5 to 7 p.m. In the University Center on the University of Montana campus, room 326, and that's all also going to be on our Instagram and Facebook. So,
can I tell you how excited I am to hear about this research?
Kyle, I'm excited too, but tell me why you're excited.
So I got the privilege of having a meeting with Carver to talk about what he's going to talk about.
Oh, you lucky duck.
I know, I got the inside scoop. And he kind of ran me through, and me and Steffi, and I think Deb as well. We were all there chatting with Carver about his research and what he's going to be talking about in the speaker series. And I left that meeting obsessed with Paddy Creek. Like, I have not stopped thinking about Paddy Creek since Carver introduced me to the concept. I really think I thought I knew what Paddy Creek was. Not even close. Not even a little bit close. Did I really know what's happening in Paddy Creek and all the interesting opportunities it's presenting? And I won't give too much away from his talk, but I'll just say it involves spelunking, and it involves landowner collaboration, and it involves detective work. Like, he's done some cool stuff.
Okay. So, well, you heard it here first, folks. Come check out some new, and he hasn't done a public presentation on this before, has he?
He's defending his thesis later this year, so I think this might actually be his first kind of presentation of some of this research. So.
Well, I am personally super excited for this. I know Kyle is too. So come check it out. Again, February 27th, 5 to 7 p.m., University Center 326.
Wonderful.
So,
one last thing, if we can touch on, if that's okay, Riley.
Totally.
Is I mentioned earlier a story from Backcountry Stream Corps, but maybe it's time we tell the folks about Backcountry Stream Corps in 2024.
Kyle, what's it going to look like this year? And
Oh,
what is Backcountry Stream Corps for all of our
yeah.
listeners who don't necessarily know what it is?
So Backcountry Stream Corps is a 2-week over the summer intensive field program where we take out local high schoolers and they work with some crew leads, usually me and Steffi, and then a few assistants. And we take them out into our backcountry streams and do a lot of sampling we can't get done at any other point. That they get the really cool opportunity to do a whole bunch of all at once and get trained in these really high-end protocols. And so usually what we'll do is collect a whole bunch of large woody debris data. For those of you who aren't familiar, large woody debris is the fancy science way of saying sticks and logs in the creek. And so what we do, like what the sampling looks like, is we'll start, say, at Greeno Park, and we'll just walk up the creek. We wouldn't actually start in Greeno Park. It's just an example. But we'll just walk up the creek, in the creek, in waders, just walking up. Every time we see a piece of wood in the stream, they'll go over and they'll measure that piece of wood to get a size classification for it. And then we take note of it. We take GPS coordinates. We take pictures. And we have now 4 full years of data of large woody debris and how it's been changing throughout the rattlesnake. But last year we got the chance to expand this sampling into Grant Creek as well, which is this creek we really haven't been in before last year. And so what it's going to look like this year is we'll be finishing some of the initial large woody debris surveying in Grant Creek. We'll be doing some more over in Rattlesnake, and then we're really going to start utilizing our backcountry stream corps to do stream team sites as well. And so they'll be doing some single site sampling that we do with our normal adult citizen science stream team. And they'll be doing those at sites across both Grant and Rattlesnake Creek. Last year we were able to do 4. I think this year we're looking at 4 again. And that makes it such that we can be doing this stream team sampling in both Grant Creek and Rattlesnake Creek and not have to extend our field season into the winter with our stream team. So it's pretty exciting.
I'm personally excited for it. I'm excited to see all the people that come out for this and get some cool experiences to some cool local youth. So if you want to apply or if you know someone, or the application will be out.
It's officially open.
It's officially open, and I'm going to be disseminating that to the peoples through our email and through Instagram and Facebook, and hopefully get some paper copies out there too.
Yeah. And it should be on the website as well.
Anything else you want to add, Kyle?
Another cool part about Backcountry Stream Corps is you get lots of free food because all the food and snacks are donated from local businesses. And so I had never tried a Warden sandwich before Backcountry Stream Corps, and I love Wardens now.
Okay.
So I go all the time for sandwiches. I'd never really had a Great Harvest sandwich, and now I can tell you a full ranking of where I put each of their sandwiches. Wow. I go in for a Great Harvest sandwich pretty frequently.
Okay.
So it'll expose you to some new local eateries as well, which is pretty exciting.
If you want access to Kyle's definitive sandwich rankings in the city of Missoula,
maybe that'll be next week on the pod.
Maybe you just got to come to Backcountry Stream Corps or to a stream team. Yeah.
There you go.
Come check it out.
Yeah. Also, it's worth noting that the participants in Backcountry Stream Corps do get a stipend for spending this time out in the creek, because it is pretty intensive for those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, walking up 4 or 5 miles of creek is no easy task.
No, it's an adventure, but that's part of the fun of it. Yeah. So,
well, Kyle, it's been a delight today.
It has. Thanks for podding, buddy.
Thanks for podding, Kyle.
And yeah, thank you to you as well for listening to what is the first episode of what will become a pretty regular part of the WEN Media stream. And we hope that you can get outside, have some fun this week, and above all, we hope that you get out to the creek this week. If you'd like to learn more about the Watershed Education Network, find us online at montanawatershed.org or get in contact by emailing water@montanawatershed.org or kyle@montanawatershed.org.